Hello, hey there, hi there, ho there. This is RHJunior, RHJunior Reality Check coming to you live over the internet through a series of tubes known as the Boob Tube of YouTube, bringing you another broadcast of my erratic, sporadic thinking and writing and drawing and all other things that I do on a little bitty show that I like to call Spleen Squeezins. Dun, 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 dun. Hey there, I am just at a loss for what to talk about today. Uh, Still not able to get the thing to do. I'm still not able to get my OBS broadcasting program to do a proper background slideshow like it's supposed to. It just will not work. It refuses. It denies me. It vexes me. Yeah. Have I got this thing on repeat? Yes, I do have it on repeat. Life is good. Life is exciting. Life is a ball of laughs. Let's put this up here. Let's start with and we start with the new song. I don't know if you can even hear the music. I can barely hear it, but here I am. Had a little bit of money squeezed through. Managed to borrowed a few dollars from my sister. Use it and had a little money squeezed through too. Managed to buy some groceries. Bought a whole spiraled ham. It's $1.98 a pound. Even with the bone in, that's a lot of meat. That'll last me a while. Bought a bag of potatoes, Irish potatoes, white Irish potatoes, and I've just got to get in the habit. I've bought potatoes before, but I don't eat them often enough, and the potatoes and the bag of potatoes will go bad. So I'm going to try and get into the habit. They're healthy. They're a fairly healthy root type vegetable. I should be eating more of them. I'll be honest. I've tried a lot of backgrounds. I've tried a lot of backgrounds with this screen. And I'll be honest, the very first one I have here is the one I like the best, really. This one here. I'll always use it. Okay, it is February. It's not February yet. It's the 23rd of January, rather. But that leaves, 7 days in January? I have 1 week of January left. I have, let's see. So just under 2.5 months, just a little bit over, a little bit over, a little bit under, 2.5 months from now till April 15th. And unless a miracle occurs between, unless something miraculous or absolutely diabolical happens between now and then, my debt to the IRS is just going to start growing again. And, yeah. So this is the point where I announce to y'all, by the way, I still do commissions. I take commission, I've got commissions that I haven't done yet, and they're still sitting there, and I've got to work on them. I've been working on them. The strip I worked on yesterday. The newest strip that's going to be going up on the old Victorian. Well, I'm going to be interested in the response, but if people are wondering, so what did he draw something smutty? Well, I will draw, spicy work. Just yeah, I'm making it a little bit spicy, a little bit saucy. I'm not sure whether I'm drawing it or marinating it. But please. Okay, I've got one person in channel, and that one person is me. It's so hard to filter the sound to keep it balanced. Things to talk about. Greta Thunberg. I never wanted to know this child's name. Basically, she's a high school dropout with her parents aiding and abetting her. She's a high school dropout on the autism. She's on the autism spectrum too. Apparently they figured having a handicapped child up there would keep us from, keep the rest of us from crying bullshit when she started spewing. But didn't work. It's just what's appalling is that everybody knows that it's a ploy. It's shameless. It's utterly dishonest, and it's still going to work. And this is one of the things that makes me slowly give up hope in humanity. Just basically give up hope in general. I never really had much hope in humanity to begin with. How dare you question the mentally handicapped child? By demanding things like facts or evidence or... So we've got mentally ill, autistic people, lecturing us on how to run the planet and making grotesque accusations against our government, and they couldn't give a rat's ass about everybody. Bush, Trump's going to start World War III. Trump's going to start World War III, and then Bush, just like Bush Junior is going to start World War III, and Bush Senior is going to start World War III, and Reagan's going to start World War III, and they were accusing Republicans of getting ready to start World War III before they even had World War II. Well, what can you do with these people? Nothing. I reached a really awful realization, a really awful realization a while ago. Leftists love bullies. Leftists love bullies. And I'm talking every kind of bully. Not just. I'm not being metaphorical here. I'm being quite literal. Leftists love bullies. They hate innocent people. And now, before we go any further, let's talk about it. Let's talk about one particular thing. What defining bullying? Now, you think everybody knows what a bully is. Well, the problem, everybody knows what a bully is, and the definition is getting real interesting out there. They apply the term bully to somebody who fought back against a purse snatcher, and gave him a beat down. That's the leftist definition. That's how the leftist defines a bully: an innocent victim who starts winning the fight. That's why they love real bullies. You know what is a real bully? What is a bully? I had to stew over this for a while. I'd sit down. What is the bully? Somebody who picks on other people. That doesn't that's vague. That's general. A bully is somebody who abuses their personal immunity to torment weaker people, to torment other people. Now, what do I mean by that? You think about it. The thing that identifies a bully is, the cowardly way they attack. They don't. A bully isn't somebody that engages you in a fair fight. A bully is somebody who picks on somebody, picks a fight with somebody smaller than themselves, or they pick a fight from behind an internet server, or they use social conventions to protect themselves, like these women who abuse and harass their sons and their husbands and their brothers in public, and just physically and emotionally ripping them up one side and down the other. But if they turn around and pop them one, it's, how can you hit me? I'm a woman. She's a coward, hiding behind social conventions, to enable her deplorable behavior. And that's a bully, and the social bullying you see in school. These kids who harass another kid and back them into a corner. They're taking advantage of the fact that the kid is not going, not likely to double up fists and jump in. Nobody else is going to jump in and fight them. They act because they believe the circumstances and the social conventions around them are going to protect them from any consequences from their actions. You talk about, for instance, go back and look at what are they? My Little Pony episode, Bad Seed. For those who don't know, that episode, the Cutie Mark Crusaders, the three little girls, that are trying to get their cutie marks. They're still young, and that was the whole reason that the three of them became friends, is because they were ganging up to protect themselves from the local bully who was socially tormenting the three of them, for not having a cutie mark yet. Now, for those who don't know, for those who haven't watched My Little Pony, let's pretend nobody's watched My Little Pony out there. The idea of the cutie mark is that My Little Ponies, they all have a little mark on their flank, on their hips, that that's unique to them, and it's a sort of a tattoo that magically appears on their hip when they finally reach a point where they understand what their most their secret passion is. If the pony is a musician, there will be their cutie mark will be like a musical note or a piano key or something like that. Or if they're into baking, it'll be a little cupcake or something. And that's the idea behind a cutie mark, is that when it just happens. It's a metaphor for adolescence and puberty, basically. In a very abstract sense. But the Cutie Mark Crusaders, they're still very young, and they haven't gotten their cutie marks yet. They seem, throughout the entire show, they were incredibly oblivious to what their real natural talents were. And they were trying everything under the sun to try and get, they do everything from cliff diving to hang gliding to, painting oil paints to playing with high explosives. They try everything, and their cutie mark wasn't coming out because it wasn't really their talent. But anyway, we're getting off track here. But the point is that they had these two spoiled snot little girls that were Silver Spoon and Diamond Tiara, that bullied the three of them, and for not having a cutie mark. Yeah, just social, the kind of social bullying you see little girls do, because boys will punch you in the face. Boys will they'll break your nose, they'll bust your teeth, they'll bruise and batter you and maybe crack a rib. But a girl who wants to torment you, she will rip open your chest, pull out your rib cage, and take a shit on your heart. Well, anyway, these the Cutie Mark Crusaders in Bab's Seed, the episode, Apple Bloom had a cousin that was coming to visit from the big city. And Babs arrives, her cousin Babs arrives, and it turns out that Babs is an even worse bully than Diamond Tiara and Silver Spoon put together. And in fact, she gangs up with Diamond Tiara and Silver Spoon to utterly torment the three Cutie Mark Crusaders, who have not done a thing wrong to her. They were all they were crazy to happy crazy to see her. They were welcoming her with open arms, and but she turned on them like that, bang, and started bullying them. And she was supposed to be bigger than them. She was stronger than them. She physically pushed them around. She took their stuff, broke their things, mocked them, pushed them around, tormented them. And it finally reached a point where the three Cutie Mark Crusaders said enough is enough and decided to get her back. So what they did is that they set up a booby trap. And there was supposed to be a big parade, and they booby trapped their float. So that halfway through the parade, it was the booby trap would go off, and Bab's Seed would be dumped into the mud down by the riverbed at the curve of the big curve of the road. And the thing of it is that the whole thing going off and required not the whole thing required that Babs continue to bully them. Literally, they set up in order for this booby trap to go off. Bab's Seed would have to behave in the worst way possible. She would have to steal the cart from the girls, push them off their own cart, and take over it. And drive it off by herself. And if she had not been bullying them, it wouldn't have happened. But at the last second, the girls find out that Bab's Seed Babs had been bullied for not having a cutie mark way back over in back in the big city. And in their misplaced guilt, they went and saved Babs from the booby trap and had it go off on them instead. And the three girls are finally cornered Applejack, and because they're having to be they're being soaked in a tub to wash off all the mud. And Applejack finally finds out what's going on, and then one of the Cutie Mark Crusaders starts lamenting. Oh, this is so ironic. We wanted to fight back against the bullying. We became bullies ourselves, and I wanted to reach through that screen and just smack a bitch. I'm serious. I wanted to reach through that screen and grab the writers, and just bitch smack them until their names swelled up. Fighting back against a bully does not make you a bully. If a bully jumps you and you turn around and you open a can of whoop ass on them, that's called reaping the consequences you sowed. For them. But in our modern society, our society refuses to see a difference between a bully and the bully's victim. That is messed up. And that's why I'm so avid and so adamant right now. What I'm saying is we need to sit. Why I'm saying that we need to have a specific definition of bullying, because they're throwing the word bully around anytime an innocent person kicks against the bricks. Anytime an innocent person starts to, get a little rambunctious and starts to fight back, they start accusing him of being a bully. What's a liberal's definition of a bully? An innocent victim who starts winning the fight. That's screwed up. And this is why I come to this conclusion. I says this is a dismal realization. Liberals, as a group, and individually as well, liberals love bullies and they hate innocent victims. And they will do their damnedest to switch the labels when they think nobody's looking. A person who fights back against a bully, an innocent victim who a person who is being attacked by a bully is somebody who attacks other people and uses, and who takes advantage of their social situation to avoid any repercussions. A bully picks a fight with anybody that's smaller than themselves. A bully will harass you, so-called cyberbullying. They'll harass somebody so long as they're on the other side of a computer screen. They'll go out and beat innocent people with bicycle chains. Fighting for freedom. So long as they can hide behind a hoodie and a handkerchief over their face. And so long as they're in a situation where they think the other side won't fight back, because they exploit society's unwillingness to fight back, to accelerate the abuse. That's a bully. A bully is not somebody who fights back. A bully is not somebody who fights back and wins the fight. If you're a bully and you pick on somebody and they open a can of whoop ass on you, metaphorically or literally, guess what? You're not a victim. You're getting just what you deserve. You're getting just what you paid for. The person that's kicking your ass up and down the street, they're a hero. Because they're not just fighting for themselves, they are kicking your ass and making sure that you're not going to pull this crap on another person after them. I'm sorry, this is one of the things that just sets me off. I was bullied as a kid. It was horrible enough back when I was a kid, back in the 1970s, in the 1980s. Oh my God, I can't imagine what it's like today. With zero tolerance. That's another example of how liberals love bullies more than they love the bullies' victims. They pass, you want to see somebody's act, you want to see what somebody really cares about, what they really believe. Watch their actions, not their words. Let them talk all day long and then watch what they do. They write these zero tolerance rules that basically treat, if somebody jumps you in a school hallway and starts beating on you like a redheaded stepchild, you are considered as much at fault as the person attacking you. That's mental illness, at its ultimate, When they refuse to distinguish, they not only refuse to distinguish between, they can't tell the difference between a hero and a victim. They can't tell the difference between an aggressor and somebody who is defending themselves. They're incapable of it. Because they have rendered themselves incapable of it. There's a man I forget his name, Horowitz, I think. He became, after September 11th. He had been leftist most of his life, but he had become moderate over his later years. And then September 11th happened, and all his supposedly compassionate, tender-hearted, sentimental, leftist friends were coming out and saying, "Well, America deserved it." And he looked, and he looked at them and realized just how bug nuts insane they all were. And he wrote a book called Kindergarten of Evil, Kindergarten of Eden, rather. And it was basically how leftism is their entire emotional spectrum is rooted in that you've seen that poster, all I ever needed to I learned in kindergarten. It's supposed to be twee and cute, and it's actually tragic and pathetic. Because it's where the leftist gets the idea that there's no such thing as differences, or especially irreconcilable ones. That if somebody in charge would come along and make sure everybody got their juice and cookies, then we'd all live in peace and there'd be no more war, and we'd all dance around the trees with Mother Nature and all the cute fluffy bunnies, and the Muppets from Sesame Street. The way he put it, the way he spelled it out is basically ever since the '60s, especially. It was deeply rooted in the '60s. The idea that war was never justified. War was the ultimate evil of humanity. And how did the thinking go? War was caused by people being different. One group having more, one group having less, one group being tall, one group being short and fat, one group, and that if we, one group having one religion and one group having another religion, and the premise went that war was everybody's fault. The philosophy made no distinction for people who went out, looking to conquer, and the people that were saying, "No, you're not going to roll over our house with a tank." They made no distinction. These people, if you left them alone long enough, they would start apologizing and showing Hitler didn't do nothing wrong. He was provoked. Because his poor country was having so many troubles, and so he just had to do something. And these people would these people have basically worked. The leftists have basically worked themselves up to a point where they blame the Holocaust on the Jews. And the first step of the grand unification theory of leftism is that all people are equal, or else. And two, if we eliminated all differences, if we pretended they no longer exist, there's no difference between a man and a woman, no difference between a capitalist and a communist, no difference between a Muslim and a Christian, or an atheist, or a guy who prays to cottage cheese and contacts flying saucers through his umbrella hat. They're all the same. We're all the same. Let's pretend they're all the same. They're all equal. And if we smoothed out all the differences, cut down all the tall poppies, and made everything all nice and even, well, then we'd never have a war again. And we'd all live in utopia and eat ice cream 3 times a day. Breakfast, lunch, and dinner. That's a child's way of thinking. A little child. One of the things they resort to is if their first impulse of a child is to if somebody if they don't want to have a conflict, they say, "Can't we be friends?" And then they grow up and they find sooner or later they got to grow up and they realize, no, we can't. so long as the other side clings to the belief that my head needs to be separated from my shoulders because I eat bacon sandwiches. No, no. There's slight chasm there between us, and making us all equal. Forcing us to all be all equal isn't going to change that. And the third phase of that is that obviously, this theory of life doesn't work. We've had socialist and communist and Marxist and fascist governments that have tried to smooth out all the wrinkles and smooth out everybody's brain like a billiard ball, and it never works. There's still differences. There's still conflict. There's still people in need. There's still people who have more than us, and there's still people who consider other people their rightful prey, and so on and so forth. And there's still suffering and sin in the world, and they look at that and they see one person, and worse, they see one person who has succeeded and one person has failed, and they are so married to their philosophy, to their grand unification theory of the universe, that simply put, the leftist view of the world is that if somebody is more successful than somebody else, he cheated. Now, if you all remember when Bush ran against Gore, that farce, and even though Gore lost by every metric, and every time they recounted the votes, he lost by a bigger margin. And he threw a temper tantrum, and all his followers threw a temper tantrum, and insisted, they swore up and down, that Bush had to have cheated. They don't know how, but he must have. And that's how they're going with Trump right now, too, is, he did something. We don't know what he did, but he must have done something, because he's rich and successful, and we're not. And everything, and he's doing all these things, and things are working out for him in the government. And we try to do things for the government, and they don't work out. So he must be cheating. Let's get him. Now, this is why they love bullies. Because by cozening a bully, it gives them an opportunity to give their support to somebody else who will take a mallet and hammer out all those dents and wrinkles they don't like so much. Don't associate with the left, because they do not care about you. They do not like you. They do not love you. They consider you, if you were a decent person, they don't like you, because you are anathema to their philosophy. And God help you if you're a nice person and you're successful. Because by their metric, you're the devil incarnate. They see two farms, they see two orchards next to each other. Apples on one side, peaches on the other. The peach farm is doing terribly, but the apple farm is, the apple orchard is doing great, bushels and bushels of apples. And their first conclusion is that somehow the apples are sneaking over and stealing all the peaches, magical health energy or something. That the apple farmer is somehow stealing prosperity from the peach grower. They're morons, and they're devoted to a philosophy that promotes both stupid and evil. And believe me, there is a profoundly blurred line between stupid and evil. Because to cling to evil in the face of all evidence is to cling to something stupid. It goes all the way back to the devil himself when he decided he was going to rebel against God. What kind of profound brain damage do you have to look up at the Almighty and go, I could take him? All right, we got two people in here. One's me, one's Mr. Cartoon Critic. How you doing, Mr. Cartoon Critic? What brings you by? By the way, I don't know when. I'm not sure how soon, but they should be updating They should be updating the old Vic fairly soon. The old Victorian, the web comic that I do commission for. I'm very interested to see the reaction of people to the new strip, because it's probably well, we'll just see what people think of it. It's you know, as I've been saying, I am willing to do, well, cheesecake, pinups, that sort of thing. Whether I've just become less inhibited or more corrupted, debate the point. But I've still got, I've got the Girls of Summer DVD just didn't. It just sort of sat there, didn't do anything. I made about 50. I think I sold about 50 of them, less than 50 of them. I've got so many things. I've got backed up projects. Many of them involve a lot of shipping and mailing and CD burning and DVD burning, and it is very frustrating because it requires anything like this, with material products, requires a certain amount of layout ahead of time, and I have got not a dime to spare, and almost always, and if I go tucking money into a sock someplace, stuffing it under the mattress for a rainy day, guarantee the roof will be leaking tomorrow. So I'm going to have to start dipping my toes in fresh waters to try, into waters I've never ventured into before, if I'm going to survive. So I may shock a few people over the next few months, and I'm not looking. I'm not looking forward to that. Actually, a part of me is. I'm wondering what the reaction is going to be to some of the things I start doing, some of the artwork I start taking commissions, but we'll see where it goes. But I can't. I've run out of steam, and I haven't got that much juice left, and I don't, I've spent the last 20 years throwing seed on the same soil, and it's not sprouting anymore. So. And I'm out of energy. I'm out of luck, and I'm going to have to be a little bit more daring if I want to survive. Anyway, okay, we got 3 people in channel. One of them's me. One of them's Mr. Cartoon Critic. Who the heck are you, Mr. Mysterious Number 3 person? Reveal your name. Reveal your name. Go ahead. Type something. Okay. There's me, there's Mr. Cartoon Critic, and there's you. You, please type something into the chat window so that we can see your name and say hello. This is the number one spleen squeezing rule of courtesy. Hello. Good to see you, or to see your name in text. I've said this so many times over the years, and I'm so tired of repeating myself, because I just no, I need people to talk to me. Why for the people not talk to me? Oh my, ooh, gassy. Ooh, uh, I ate too many Pop Tarts. Had a few groceries delivered today. Managed to get some groceries. Got some milk, some potatoes, and some sliced, a big one of them big spiral sliced hams. That'll last me a while. I still got to divide it up and wrap up all the slices and stuff. And also got some soda pop and some Pop Tarts. And I don't know why I was craving Pop Tarts. I wanted to add one more thing, something, frivolous to the list. So I have Pop Tarts. And I'm not particularly thrilled with them. Man, when I was a kid, man, Pop Tarts, Pop Tarts. We almost never got things like Pop Tarts. We almost never had things like Pop Tarts. We almost never had Little Debbie snack cakes. It freaked me out. I was like 17, and we'd moved to a new neighborhood. We visited. Dad had just started pastoring a new church, and we visited one of the deacon's houses. And I'm hanging out with his teenage son, and hey, you want a snack? We go into the kitchen, and there are like half a dozen boxes of Little Debbie snack cakes sitting on the counter. I'm like, holy crap! What did you prepare for a party or something? No. What are you talking about? Here, grab yourself a couple. Sugar high, wee. But it really changed my perspective on what constituted normalcy for other people. You know what I'm saying? Can you dig what I'm saying? It's very different to realize that milk, growing up for me, milk was a treat, and ever since I've been out on my own, I buy milk in multiple gallons. I mean, I at the beginning of this month I bought 4 gallons of milk, and within a week and a half it was all gone. 4 gallons, because it was either that, drink water, or guzzle soda. And I have enough trouble with my obesity, and my bad dietary habits. But guzzling milk, I got plenty of calcium in my system. Let me tell you that. I'm gonna probably this is probably how I'm gonna die. Get a kidney stone the size of a golf ball made out of pure calcium. Is he dead? No, I just wish there was. Can we get you anything? Yes, my gun. Okay, so what all questions do you have? What else would you like to ask? You like to talk about? Here, let me start the art program. I've got another strip that I've got to get done for Daniel Meyer, commission strip. So I might as well get it up and rolling and start working on it. Animated background headers, window capture 3. No, that's not it. Window capture. That's not working either. There we go. Okay. There's nothing quite so much fun as being a member of a fandom and of of a game or of a movie franchise or a book franchise or a comic show or a TV show, and you read up about what's going on behind the scenes, behind the screens, and it becomes more and more obvious that this franchise that you're in love with is behind closed doors. It's a complete dumpster fire. Ever since Blizzard merged with Activision, it's been a complete it's been World of Warcraft has been bleeding. The latest expansion, Battle for Azeroth. I haven't I don't know. I'm not one of these hardcore 5 hour a day. Here, let me calculate the exact number of points this particular piece of armor will give my elf, elf rogue kind of guys. But by and large, this is the lowest their enrollment has been in years, and it's not a good sign. Of course, Blizzard is so World of Warcraft is so large, it's almost unkillable. It's just so blinking large. They literally gain and lose, users during the holiday season. Everybody signs on and gets the new expansion for Christmas, and then a bunch of people drop away around about March, and that alone, that seasonal swell is larger than the entire population of the next largest game out there. So, they can take their licks and keep on ticking, But it's really bad, this nonsense with China. That's a long story. They keep abandoning projects. They keep making promises and not delivering on them. They keep firing people that they desperately need to keep the company running. And this has apparently been a pattern for a couple of years now. Somebody in the some bean counter in the higher ranks will want to cut the salaries, and they'll fire a couple of people, and then they'll go, whoops, we actually needed those people. They were kind of important. They were doing important work, and they will put the job back. Now we have an opening for the position we just eliminated, and the people will come back, for lack of other options. And what's really bad is that they've started reposting these jobs with lower salaries. And I mean, they're screwing over their employees, and they wonder why the morale is flagging all over the place. And like I said, it all started when Activision and Blizzard merged, and it seems like all the toxicity is coming from Activision, or the resources and the people that came with it. They changed massive sections of their company policy, and not for the better, and it's hurting them. And I'm sitting here, I'm playing World of Warcraft, and I'm wondering, am I going to get addicted to this thing again? Am I going to turn around in 5 months and they canceled? World of Warcraft has been, removed from the internet. Yeah, because they couldn't stay the course anymore. Like, is this going to be another WildStar? Man, I loved WildStar. It was my go-to game, and it crashed, and the thing of it is that they couldn't get their feet under them. They had this huge explosion, Mondo explosion opening, and then discovered they hadn't put enough servers up. And by the time they got enough servers, the membership had just dropped off like a cliff, because everybody got tired of waiting hours to log on. And then they and then some dumbass bean counter made them, cut back the number of servers to match the new size, and then the promotion started bringing more people back in, and then they had the same problem again. It was constant yo-yo, and they did, and they just did not develop the online social community. That's what keeps World of Warcraft going, is the guilds and the groups and everybody. It's a social thing more than anything else. I'm more of a solitary player, but even I belong to a guild. But further along they've gotten further and further away from their roots, and it's starting to fall apart. WildStar, they never got to, they had a chance. They almost had something for a while, because one of the nicest things about WildStar, the player housing. Your character, after a certain level, got a little plot of land that he could build a settlement on. It was on a big flying raft in the sky, but you could build your house, you could decorate it, you could do just anything, and the things people did with that is just absolutely mind-boggling. I would spend hours just touring people's. I would get bored with the grinding, and I would go tour people's houses just to see what they had done and what they had built. I mean, there was a guy who built his. There were several people that rebuilt their frontier home into a giant spaceship. Turn it into a spaceship with and other people turned it into a space station. Other people made it into a miniature futuristic city. A city block of a city, and one guy built a replica of the Firefly from Serenity on his lot of land, one piece at a time. It was like Minecraft for online mortgages. Absolutely more, incredibly crazy. And people made dreamlands and haunted houses, and they used to, the housing community. They used to joke that the end game content was the housing content, because your character, if your character took certain skill sets and certain career paths, he could build most of the stuff that you used on your plot of land. I had one that was I had one house that was a hidden jungle hideaway, with a quote-unquote crashed spaceship that was actually the character's house. I had another that was this, that the entire thing was built up into a gigantic floating zero-gravity water fountain with the house at the center, inside a giant ice crystal. I had another that was the character was a robot, so I built his housing lot to look like cyberspace, and so on and so forth. There was just absolutely no limit, and I could go on like that for hours. WildStar, it had so much potential, but they fumbled. Management fumbled, and they couldn't recover, and they eventually went free to play, and then they canceled the game entirely. It was a marvelously innovative game, sci-fi western sort of setting, a lot like Firefly, and innovative combat method, combat technique, fighting, and just rip-roaring funny humor.
and slap bang and excitement. It was fun, but by the end, it reached a point where the tournament matches, where you'd get like a dozen people on each side would sign up to duke it out, and half of them were bots. They fumbled, and they never quite recovered. I think they could still make a go of it, if they brought it back and just put it online. It's a shame that something like that. I mean, didn't have a devoted enough fan base to keep it going. And then there was City of Heroes. Remember City of Heroes? That game was terrible. Really was. It was supposed to be. It was the first superhero game, and it kind of sucked. Whoever the people that designed the game, it was like they had heard about the idea of comic book superheroes, but hadn't quite actually gotten around to reading comic books before they designed the game. I mean, you could design your superhero character, give him all sorts of powers and power ups, and micromanage his build to the nth degree. My first character was a Superman type, with super strength and invulnerability. I give him super strength and invulnerability. I go out and he gets beaten into the ground by a purse snatcher. Dear programmers, you did not get the vibe. The final character I ever made was a knockoff of Kick-Ass, and ironically, he suited the theme. This wannabe superhero kept getting his ass kicked by purse snatchers and muggers, and had to run around everywhere, not even at super speed. You didn't get a travel power until you were halfway up the level ladder. You got a cape. You had to level up to wear a cape on your costume. These people that design and if the zones, the areas of the city were walled off from each other with giant force fields, and you got around by riding the monorail. You got from one section of the city to another by riding the monorail of justice, mass transit of the future. It's the Justice League monorail. Da, 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 da. It was terrible. It really was, but people loved it, and the people that were running it, they finally they gave up on it and shut it down. And that happens over and over when if you're a gamer. There's always a new game that comes out, and nobody wants to keep it alive. And it looks like there's just the first inklings, unless the management of Activision Blizzard, unless they pull their craniums out of their rectums, they are going to go the way of all their predecessors. Anyway, I feel old. I feel really old. And I've been feeling old for a couple of days. And the thing about feeling old is that, I'm talking about the kind of feel old where you realize you're not going to get better. When you're young, when up until your 20s and your 30s even, your mid 30s, you're going, okay, I feel tired today. I hurt. I'm sore. I'm just, and I'm a little depressed about how old I'm getting and how unhealthy I'm getting, but tomorrow will turn around. I'll feel, I'll take a nice long, I'll sleep, and get up tomorrow. I'll be rested and I'll be energetic again, and I can turn my health around. I can turn all this around. And I can. This is just a setback. But by 48, I'll be 49 in March. By 49, I'm already going. I can't even sustain anymore. This how I feel right now. How I feel right now is probably as good as it's going to get for the rest of my life. I'm going to wake up tomorrow probably as tired as I am now, maybe more so. My legs are not going to get better. My weight's not going to, you know, you know, my health's not going to get better. My weight's not going to get better. My legs aren't going to get better. Barring outrageous circumstances, my personal economy is not going to get any better either. And it's pushed me to the extreme at this point. And and I'm not quite sure what and I get the feeling I'm about to, I'm not quite sure what I'm going to do next, what I'm going to be willing to do next. I've been saying this for years, and half of you probably know what I'm and it's one thing to try and bounce back when you're 20. When you're nearly 50, when you're just a year shy of 50, you don't bounce anymore. You land and your knees make sounds like they're never going to bend again. And if you're lucky, maybe you'll be able to stand back up. And it's really starting to get to me that I'm just I should probably say it's gotten to me, because I'm not fooling anyone, not even myself at this point. I'm spending way too much time going, what am I going to do? And spending way too much more time going, there's not really much anything I can realistically do. Uh, why don't you say, why didn't you save up some money? Hey, I haven't got any money. My current bank account is below 3 digits. You know what I'm saying? Way below. And that's it. You know, and you're paddling to try and keep your head above water, and people are asking, why don't you try flying? you know, I know that I can persist. I know that I can persist. Knowing it up here in your head, knowing, I will survive. I will survive, and the rest, your head's going, your head's coming up with that noise, and the rest of you's going, yeah, yeah, you keep saying that. Okay, you know what I'm saying. You know darn well what I'm saying. So I do this every night. I get off on these "woe is me" tracks, and let's stop that, because it's even I'm tired of hearing it. So let's go on. Let's go on elsewhere. I think I'm just feeling a little scared now. You know. I'm gonna check something. Just give me a second to check. Okay. That picture of me in my Patreon page, with the brown beard and the Viking helmet. That was from when I was in my 20s, like 28 or something, I think. What was it's slow to boot up. I'm looking for something here and I'm not finding it, so. Patrons. Promote. I'm looking for J. Riley McCool. J. Riley McCool. I've told you about her. She is the author of How to Be Homeless. And I am only guessing that she is in. She must have rock solid health, because if I'm not mistaken, she is at least my age and probably older. And she is still, and she is, like the title says, she's homeless. The only thing she has is a little camper trailer. And she can't even use that because she's got no place to park it, and in the region she lives in, the powers that be have decreed that you can't park your trailer just any old place. Yeah, you have to have also, you have to be in a place with certain permits and licenses and fees and all this other crap that she doesn't have and couldn't afford. She's living in, she's in my situation times 10 basically, and God preserve her. I pray for her, because you don't understand when most people they got things here. They got these things. They ask people on Reddit. What was your first real, shocking realization of how different being poor was? Rich kids, when did you first realize you were living in a bubble? Questions like that, and people will post the answers, and they have a computer read the answers off, and I think that there is a real divide in society, because the young upper middle class, and upper middle class do not. It's enlightening for me to realize just how much they do not know about us down here at the bottom rung. One girl writing, she never realized that, it was an epiphany to realize that people lived in single wide trailers. People didn't live in single wide trailers because they preferred it. They lived in it because they could all afford it. Or some other kid writing, she realized, after they hit the skid, her family hit his family hit the skids, just how desperate things could really be when you're poor. Because for a person from where it used to be, a broken down refrigerator, or an empty gas tank, or a broken down car, or a traffic ticket was a minor inconvenience. But just being one rung lower on the economic ladder turned those relatively minor inconveniences into catastrophes that could unravel everything. It's not just living from paycheck to paycheck. It's getting it's making the same choice every month. Food, clothing, shelter. Pick any two. And you got a house. I don't like living in a broken down house, but I couldn't begin to fix it. And even if I could fix it, I don't have the money to buy the materials and the tools and the training to repair it all. This is what can't get through to my dad. My dad doesn't exactly come from a rich background either. But he comes from a long line of do-it-yourselfers. And he has trouble grasping the idea that somebody else can't fix it. He's one of these people that builds his own shed out back of his house. Me, I'm a start the orange peel for me guy. I could, and forget it. My roof is leaking. I couldn't begin to, even if I had the tar, the bucket, the brush, the ladder, I could not begin to get up on that roof. And if I did, I'd probably fall right through it. And I can't afford to pay somebody else to do it. And mowing my lawn, for God's sake, that costs me $40 to $60 a month, and that's if I skip one of the 2 mows a month I get. That's monstrous. They want $60 to come out and mow my yard. They mow it and they trim it. They do a nice job. I'll say that much for them, but still $60. I used to pay people $20, but pay the local high school kid $20 to mow my lawn, and then he moved away. And then there was this kid, 20-something. He was a serviceman. He was and he I paid him and he mowed my lawn, and then he moved away. And every time I find somebody who can do chores for a reasonable amount of money around here, they quit doing it or they move away. And if I don't have that lawn mowed, I can, the park supervisor can start leveling fees at me and fines at me and probably and start hassling me for it. And and I'm behind on my lot rent by a terrifying amount. But I keep paying. But slipping further behind each month as I do. But they're not really leaning on me or anybody else around here because we're all behind, and but we're all still producing cash. So I guess they decided a leaky pipe is better than none. And I'm sick of this. I'm sick of living like this. And and I'm and what pisses me off, what infuriates me, if I really did, throw caution to the wind, and and just start doing, the instant I try to jump aboard something, it'll fall out from under me. I know it. It's happened to me over and over and over again. I know that if I try and bootstrap myself, there is a way I could bootstrap myself, but the instant I tried it, it would fail, because it seems to be a divinely appointed law of God that I should never succeed at any endeavor. That I should have only so much success, and then I should then that further progress shall grind to a halt. I go online, I got online. I started collecting. I started getting thousands and thousands of readers, more and more and more and more, and I kept updating and updating, and things were looking great, and then everything started stalling out. People stopped making commissions. People stopped ordering books and DVDs. People stopped, people stopped everything, and here, I'm still grinding, turning the organ, the handle on the organ grinder like crazy. But the monkey ain't getting no banana, and it burned me out, and now I can't seem to crank out one or two strips a week, and it's humiliating me. It's shaming me, and it's killing me, because I'm looking around at all these other people in the field, and they're still going great guns, and I'm like, what the heck happened to me? What happened to all my energy? Old age and Brian. I've been at this. I have been at this longer than over 20 years. Tell me how much longer am I supposed to how much longer am I supposed to crank away at the handle in that organ grinder? And this is probably why I can't seem to muster any enthusiasm anymore. Because I look at I can crank out another strip and another strip and another strip, and nothing changes. And after a certain point, all you can hear is the voice in the back of your head going, "What is the point?" And then you stand up and you start whipping yourself for feeling sorry for yourself, and you try to get back on the horse again and start grinding again, and nothing happens. I once saw it was a video of an art installment. Let me see if I can. It was one of these. It was called the minimum wage machine. The minimum wage machine allowed anybody to work for minimum wage. Uh, Here, let me. Here we go. It was just a bin, as you can see, is a bin full of coins, pennies, and you turn the crank. Turning the crank will yield 1 penny every 4 seconds for about $9 an hour, or New York State minimum wage at the time it was put out there, 2016. And literally, it pours the money out into your hand as you turn the crank, at the rate of 1 penny every 4 seconds. Well, you can adjust it for different minimum wages, but for $9 an hour, and and anybody who's ever worked a minimum wage job, anybody who's ever struggled to make a living can relate to that machine far too well. Is this getting are you feeling it? Because I'm feeling it just looking at the picture. Cruel reality. Cruel reality. I've wrecked myself. This is what I've become. This is me. That's your life. If you stop turning the crank, you die. And I think every person that sneers, oh, you're entitled, You think where you live, blah 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 blah. They should spend a little time on that machine, trying to earn the wages they normally make. Let's see a corporate CEO spin that dial fast enough to get his usual $1,000 a day. And that's what I'm saying is that I'm not trying to say I deserve so much more. I'm not trying to say that in the least. What I'm saying is that I used to feel enthusiasm. I used to feel just exploding with energy to create when I said, and now I feel like I feel like an organ grinder. I feel like that guy turning that crank on that penny spitting machine. And except picture the guy turning the crank, except he's got a monkey on his back, screeching and banging a tin cup on the guy's head, because he wants his share of the pennies as fast as possible. That's how it feels to be poor, because you got the landlord, you got the electric company, you got the trash people, the yard people, the water company, the electric company, this company, that company, the landlord, the IRS. Everybody wants a slice of you, and everybody thinks that they should come first at getting a slice out of your bank account. Like it's made of infinite cake. This is another thing that pisses me off is, you got the average person, they can't make a living on one unless you're already halfway up the corporate ladder. You're not going to be able to make a living at your job. There are people out there with 2 jobs, 3 jobs. They have to take 2 or 3 jobs. Why? Because the company won't give them full time. And what's worse, each job is only given the guy 15 to 20 hours a week. And each one insists that their schedule is the one that is God Almighty as far as he's concerned. All the other companies, this guy has 3 different jobs, and he's supposed to tell all, each one is convinced that the sun shines out of their butt, and that worker guy should just tell the other ones to go pound sand. Because their schedule is tantamount. Yeah. There were a couple of stretches when I was in my 20s and where I worked 2 different jobs at the same time. I cannot begin to describe. Let's put it this way: there was a stretch for a few months, for a month or 3, where I had a job at a Krispy Kreme donut shop, and at a Subway sandwich shop at the same time. I would borrow my mom's car. I would drive all the way out to the city, park out there, wait for whichever one was supposed to open first that day to open up. I would get in my uniform, go in the bathroom, wash up as best I could, put on my uniform for that job, and then go out and make sandwiches until 11 at night, and then I would go out, sleep in the car. And then wait until the morning when the donut people open up. I would get out, go to the bathroom, switch into my donut making uniform, and and I would be out there like 3 or 4 in the morning cranking out donuts, for the early morning SOBs. I am in an ungracious mood. Let's put it that way. I'm just not feeling the love for the, for everybody out there. And it was awful. I'll tell you that much. I quit the job at the Subway eventually. After a couple of months, and just I was packing a good amount of money in, minimum wage, both of them, and just a little bit above minimum wage at the time actually, and I worked the Krispy Kreme close to full time, even full time for a stretch, and I worked there and worked there and worked there. After a couple of years, this was there was a story in my life. I'd have a job at low or close to minimum wage for a couple of years, and then then something would happen. I would either lose a job or I would find another job that paid just a little bit more. Just barely keeping ahead of minimum wage, and I would switch over, and it was that stretch, working 2 jobs at a time. I can't imagine doing that, for years on end. Just to pay the bills, just to keep the roof over the family head. I just can't. It ground me to a stub whenever I tried to do it, because every waking moment, every sleeping moment revolved around those 2 jobs. They were 2 different jobs, 2 different schedules. They weren't exactly consulting with each other. I was a human ping pong ball with little to no time in between the 2 of them. It was more than I was able to handle, and now that's become, from what I understand out there, that's status quo. You're lucky if you break 20 hours with a part-time job now. So people are out there getting 2 jobs, 3 jobs, just to make ends meet, and people who have already got theirs. These people who were born on, as the rather cynical joke goes, they were born on third base and think they hit a triple. You want to start sounding like a commie? Be poor for a while. Isn't it interesting? But that's the thing of it, is that people forget that the reason communism and Marxism and all these other isms took off, they didn't fabricate the problems they were addressing. You understand what I'm saying? They didn't make up what they were talking about. People were poor. People were struggling. People were being ground up by these robber barons and by these huge companies who didn't give a rat's ass about them. and people were struggling, and the struggle was real. And along come these communists with an absolutely terrible solution to the problem. The fact that communism and Marxism are horrible solutions to the problems in question doesn't change the fact that the problem is still there and it's still real. And speaking logistically, the real solutions, nobody wants the real solutions because they're so drastic, they would cause massive social upheaval to implement. Do you have any imagination? Our economy is sinking. The dollar is losing its face value faster than a leaky sieve. Can you imagine what it would take to reverse that? I can. First off, going back on the gold standard, and second off, eliminating the minimum wage entirely, which sounds counterintuitive, but the minimum wage didn't help. The problem was that the dollar was losing face value, consistently due to fiat currency induced inflation. Oh, you don't really know that that's the cause of it. Yeah, well, every time that the government decided to, cut the dice, cut the money. Originally, a $20 bill was an ounce of gold. That was over 100 years ago. And then Roosevelt came along, wanted to fight a war, and wanted to muck around with the economy a little bit. And we went on. We started printing $40 for every ounce of gold. And guess what? The value of the dollar went. The value of the dollar didn't stay up there. It didn't just float there. It matched the its actual market value. And gold didn't just float there. Its price changed too. And it's predictable every time they did. And then we finally, we in the 60s we finally went on completely on fiat currency, and overnight the price of gold went from like $50 an ounce to several hundred, and it's skyrocketed ever since. Currently it's about $1,200 after having hit a peak of $1,500 an ounce. That doesn't mean the value of gold's gone up. Gold hasn't gotten more valuable. The dollar has gotten worth less. Instead of 20 little pieces of paper to buy an ounce of shiny yellow miller, you now need 1,500 little green pieces of paper to buy that same shiny yellow rock. But you take that shiny yellow rock and you go out and get goods with it, actual products. Actual commodities. The value of that shiny yellow rock has stayed about the same. 100 years ago, you could buy a nice suit with it. A nice tailored, top of the line suit, from the best tailors in New York. And today, same story. That lumpy rock would buy you a nice three-piece suit by the top tailors in New York. It would buy you the same amount of land, the same amount. It would buy the same amount. But the little green pieces of paper we're passing around, they're deflating like a balloon. That's where where we're having so much trouble, is because people are working harder and harder for these little pieces of paper that are evaporating like a popsicle in the middle of the 4th of July. Nobody can save anything because it's like trying to save a snowman until summer. It's melting away. This is why nobody has any savings accounts. The average person in America doesn't have a savings account. Doesn't have more than a few $100. Nobody's saving for their retirement because if they saved up by the time they got there, all they'd have is a bank vault full of green kitty litter. They're spending it now getting, trading that paper for commodities while it still has value. Trading it for actual real stuff. Houses, land, food, shotgun, canned food and shotguns. Can you dig it? That's my recommendation. Don't save money. Don't put it in a bank, for God's sake. The banks have been in on the scam ever since the Federal Reserve was introduced to the United States. Come on. No. You're better off taking, don't invest your money in bank stock, don't put your money in a bank, don't invest it in anything but real solid things, things like property, tools, machinery, long-term goods. Stockpile as if you're preparing for winter and you expect winter to last 20 years. I think a lot of Christians are hoping that the rapture comes before the economic collapse does. I really think that people are, that's their plan for the swing low, sweet chariot retirement fund. Well, I hate to point it out to you, the people that lived through World War II thought the end of the world was coming too. And they still had to get up in the next morning and live in the world that are broken to pieces around them. There are people that talk about, the crises that are coming, and then they start talking about the rapture, and I'm like, you're putting a lot of stock in the idea that Jesus is playing you beat the clock for you. No. I could drop dead tomorrow. That's one of the things I'm aware of. You reach a certain age, you start becoming aware of, I've got a lot of parts in me that are about ready to fail at any given moment. I already had part of my heart crap out on me, so, the idea that death could come in the middle of the night for me, despite, all my planning for the future. That's one of the schizophrenic things about Christian culture. It warns people, look to the ant, thou sluggard, about preparing for the future, and and all this. But at the same, in the same breath, it culturally criticizes and ridicules people that do. I remember when the Y2K. I remember when Y2K was a concern. You know, year 2000 was coming, and it looked like people had really screwed up with the computer systems that ran literally everything in the world. And people started preparing, and people started prepping. They started, buying up goods and preparing for, for a major emergency, just in case. And there were religious outlets and Christian publications that ridiculed these people, mocked them as wild-eyed fearmongers, and cowardly. Is this really how Jesus wants us to live as Christians? And in the front cover of Christianity Today, you had, this, the big fat redneck dad in the baseball cap sitting there, with his bug-eyed look on his face, clutching his wife, his tearful daughter, and his shotgun to himself, while they were surrounded by crates of food and cans of beans and bags of rice and flour, and a good calendar on the wall. Year 2000. Is this really how Christians are supposed to? These dumbasses forget that for thousands of years, Christians had to run for their lives. This is where the diaspora came from. That's the diaspora. The persecution of Christians. They scattered across the globe, to get away from it. They didn't just sit around and say, "Oh, Jesus will let us overcome." No, they said, these people are trying to kill us. We're going someplace where they're not. Not just yet. And they spread over the world, and that's how Christianity got its big start. That's why it grew so fast. Jesus may very well sweep in and save us all from catastrophe, but he may very well let us live through it. One of the things I've suspected is that the rapture, when it happens, and starts the tribulation, that the rapture will happen at a time when Christian persecution is already worse than than it's ever been. We're living in a fairly idyllic time, very idyllic, compared to any other time in history, especially if for a Christian. This is, expecting Jesus to spare us from all suffering. One of the things I've noticed is that God, 9 times out of 10 says, you're just going to have to endure this. I can't tell you how many times I've prayed for God. Please, God, please do something. Show me something. Show me some way to heal up my legs. Please, just give me my legs back, so I can stand on my own 2 feet without hurting. And no word back yet. Let's put it that way.
I'm going through. I've been, I've been stuck in this rut with my life, and the rut's only getting deeper. And I don't think I'm gonna be able to overcome or endure much longer. That's the thing. The one thing I'm scared of is that something's going to happen. My roof caves in, maybe, or I suffer an accident that puts me in, or something else happened that puts me in intensive care, and I'm not able to live on my own anymore, and I end up having to move back in with my parents, and the utter shame of having them come in and see what a hovel I live in now. What a terrible conditions I've slidden into, and the words coming out of their mouths, why didn't you tell us it was so bad? Because I'm not joking here. I've been cleaning this house. I've been cleaning this house, and it's still a dump. It's full of crap that needs to be thrown away or burned. I've managed to get most of the trash out, but I've still got stacks and stacks of boxes with junk in them that I've got to get rid of. And I'm just I've spent my life convinced that if everybody knew the truth about him, God, when he's going to finally face the Almighty, that he's just going to look at me in disgust, and you go, that you wicked and slothful servant. That's just about the second most serious fear I have. And when I'm struggling with doubt, my greatest fear though is, depart from me, accursed, I never knew you. That's the terrible truth of my life. Christians, a lot of Christians will chide and chastise another Christian for doubting their salvation, struggling with that. But I note that for all that people profess, I've never doubted my salvation. That old gag where the old gag where you convince them the rapture took place and left them behind works an awful lot of times too. I've heard of kids, they'll do this, at Bible camp. I've heard of kids doing this at Bible camp. Their cabin, they'll lay out their clothes like they had just been walking along, and their shoes and everything just piled on the floor, and then they'll all hide and wait for the one lone sucker to come back in, and then watch him freak out when he can't find anybody and finds nothing but empty clothes lying on the floor. Ha 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 ha! How funny! Give you a complex, man. It's Jesus' promise, not our own strength, that keeps us in His hands. That's the one thing you have to remember. The one thing you have to be reminded of, because we're weak. We're all weak. If we were strong enough that we could get through the day without ever doubting anything Jesus said or did, without doubting, if we could get through life without doubting at all, we wouldn't need a savior, because even the angels don't have faith like that. I wish Jesus would give me peace on the matter, though. Because I'm old and tired and I don't have the strength or energy to put up with stuff like this anymore. Doubt and fear and uncertainty and worries about everything from what will happen tomorrow to what will happen in the hereafter. And I'm just not up to it, and I never was. An answer would be nice. You ask people, you ask the spiritual leaders in your life, why, and God has a reason, and why doesn't God speak to us anymore? In a clear, unequivocal manner. In moments of bitterness, I'm like, isn't it interesting how after the last page of the Bible got written, God suddenly got bashful. One minute, the first chapter of the Bible, he's creating the world. The rest of the Bible, the rest of the Bible is pillars of fire and volcanoes and earthquakes and great windstorms and oceans parting and burning bushes and people being raised from the dead and all these other things happening. And even after Jesus returns to heaven, his apostles are performing miracles all over the place, healing the sick and casting out demons and all this, and all these miracles. And then suddenly, boom, modern time, whoop, nothing. But we're assured that someday, there'll come, the rapture and the tribulation and all that, the book of Revelation, and all these incredible signs will start happening all over again. It's always sometime in the unforeseen future, or it's thousands of years in the past. But it's never here and now. That's a thing that if that doesn't cause you concern, if that doesn't try your faith, then you're not really intellectually honest. I believe the Bible. I believe the Bible is true, and I've seen evidence, and I've worked out the logic for myself, and the reasoning for myself, and that what the Bible says about Jesus and God and man and sin and how we relate to our Creator, it's all true. Because we come back to one fundamental aspect: if Jesus, if anything in the Bible had been untrue, then Jesus would either have been a liar or a lunatic. He would not be by any measure just another good man like Gandhi. He would be a lunatic on the order of a man who believed he was a talking egg. No. He claimed to be God and of God, and that he and his Father were one. And every Jew there knew what he was talking about. He was claiming to be part of the deity, of the Godhead, and no. If he was either crazy, if you don't say something like that without being as crazy as as a soup sandwich, or being outright amorally evil, or it's the truth. And quite fundamentally, what he said, his crucifixion, the fact that the church persists, is all the proof we need that everything God said and Jesus said was true. Because basically, I've talked about this before, the falsifiable experiment, one of the fundamental rules of science, of uncovering knowledge and revealing truth, is that if you're going to test something, if you're going to test a hypothesis, you have to arrange an experiment that is falsifiable. That is to say that your experiment labors to prove your hypothesis false. Or rather, there has to be it has to be possible to get a true or a false out of it. If it only says true or we need more data, that's not an experiment. That's chicanery.
And Jesus subjected Christianity to the ultimate test with his own death, burial, and resurrection. There was a rather morbid joke that went around a while. Now, attention, news bulletin. Easter's been canceled. We found the body. Consider this: Jesus Christ was executed by his political and social and religious enemies. He was at their mercy. His body was under their control the entire time. From the moment he was nailed to, from the moment they took him prisoner, to the moment they nailed him on the cross, to the moment that he was buried in a tomb with a giant boulder rolled in front of the door. That was the entire purpose of the rigmarole they went through with his body after his death. They knew that he had claimed to be God, and that one of the claims is that he was going to return from the dead. And they, in 3 days I will return. And these Pharisees and these Roman authorities say we're gonna put a stop to this right now. We're gonna snuff this cult out now, because the argument was, even then they were smart enough to realize if all that has to happen is for his body to disappear, and so and this cult will never be able to stop this cult. These followers of Jesus. And so they put his body in a tomb, rolled a stone in front of it, sealed the tomb with a royal seal. It was literally a death sentence to break that seal if you were not permitted to. And then they stationed a double order of Roman centurions around it. They put guards all the way around it. These were literally the most elite soldiers on earth at the time. This was the equivalent of putting two platoons, putting two troops of Navy SEALs or Green Berets around a graveyard. Nobody was getting in. Nobody was getting out. And despite everything they did. This was their plan. This plan was, on the third day they were going to go there, open the tomb, drag the body out, and parade the body in front of the believers, and say, "See, just another man, and he's dead." And boom, that would have been the end of Christianity. And what a surprise! Easter morning, the last they saw of the the entire troop of guards was that they were running as fast as they could in the other direction. They go in there, that stone is rolled away, and the tomb is empty. And if it had been faked, if the apostles had somehow, I'm trying to, this is like, try to imagine 12 Bubba rednecks breaking into Fort Knox and overwhelming again a bunch of Green Berets to steal something. You can imagine how fast that would go. This was the equivalent. These were a bunch of fishermen. It wasn't like they woke up they woke up on Easter morning and magically transformed into the Teenage Mutant Ninja Hebrews, went out there, beat up all those Roman centurions in their armor and swords and shields, with their jiu-jitsu, Jiwabunga, kicked the boulder out of the way of the door, grabbed the body, and ran off into the hills. No! That body didn't go anywhere except under its own power. Easter's still on. They never found the body. 2,000 years of the enemies of Christianity, of the enemies of Christ, busting a nut trying to find that body. and the tomb's still empty. I guarantee you, they had the Romans had were upending every basket in the city looking for the body, and continued to look for quite some time. And then you had the apostles after they went out and they started prophesying and witnessing and telling what they had seen, what they had experienced. Now, consider this. If they had been lying, how fast would they have cracked? There were less than a dozen men involved in Watergate. They sprung a leak like a punctured water balloon in no time flat. These men, these apostles and the other disciples that saw Jesus and witnessed him and spoke to him, after his resurrection, who witnessed the empty tomb, they had nothing to gain by insisting on, by lying and pretending that Jesus was alive. Nothing to gain from it. Because to insist that Jesus was alive was to guarantee that you were going to be imprisoned, tortured, and eventually put to death. It would, this wasn't like a cult or a scam cult that was going to make the higher ups rich and famous and powerful. It made them exiles. It made them public enemy number one. It got them beaten. It got them whipped. It got them thrown in chains. It got them thrown in jail. It got them murdered. And not a one of them, even under the most extraordinary torture, disavowed what they said they saw. And this wasn't a matter of them believing in something that they'd only heard about. This was something that they saw. This is the real meaning of the word witness. These men were eyewitnesses to what they were describing. And it was something so incredible that they couldn't do anything but tell what they had seen. Even in the direst situation, even when it was at its most brutal, even when they were being stoned to death, even when they were being crucified, thrown to the lions, and worse. The idea that 12 uneducated men could hold out on most people would crack and tell them whatever they wanted to hear, regardless of the truth. For these men to hold out and refuse to change their story, even to the pain of death. 12 men and not one of them broke. If they really had sneaked the body out of the tomb, if they really had faked Jesus' death, one of them would have broken, if for no other reason than to stop the suffering. So yes, I do believe the Bible is true. I do believe what the Bible has to say is true. And in my own feeble studying of it, trying to understand all the things in it, I let's just say I can confirm it is a valid source. Citation not needed. But that doesn't, but again, getting back to what I was talking about initially, it has been almost around about 2,000 years since the last time God directly spoke to anyone, as far as our records have ever shown. After the last book of the Bible was closed, any record of miracles or epiphanies, or Christ speaking to one of his followers, or to one of his prophets or priests, or or to his prophets or followers or believers. Yeah, spurious, not friend of a friend stories, or even just outright falsifiable. Uh, and that's a hard thing. That's a hard thing. 2,000 years of radio silence makes it a little hard to live on this world. What the heart cannot confirm, the head must hold sway. And I'm intelligent enough to know that I'm intelligent enough to know that despite my feelings, despite my desires, oh yes, there are certain wide stretches of the Bible that, like a worldly, sinful human being that I am, I would be very happy to find out. Oh, hey, these don't really count. But no, as I have no excuse. I suppose because Jesus gives faith to those who need it, and knowledge to those who will carry it. If that makes sense. If you can understand what I mean by that. I feel so tired and alone and afraid all the same. I wish, I pray constantly that Jesus would send his comfort. I pray that the Holy Spirit would comfort me, because I am not dealing well with the struggles my life has accumulated. Not in the least. All I can do is ask, tell you, just ask if you could all be forgiving of me for being weak. Okay, we've got 4 people in channel. I've got 160 subscribers. I find it astounding, the idea that there is 160 people who actually sit and watch recordings of this show. I'm going to turn this off for a little bit. Just tired of looking at that. Just tired of looking at it for a while. My. I'm aching a bit. I'm sore. It's just this chair I spent over $100 on. It's rated for my weight, but it's built wrong. It's a I think it's a factory reject because the bolts and screws that it all put together, the screw holes are in the wrong places, just slightly off, so that the seat is tilted forward just a little bit. So all my weight is sort of sliding forward constantly. The cushions are breaking down. The back is breaking down. The arms are breaking down. It's just uh, I'm going to need a new. I need a new chair because I hurt constantly because this thing is not built right, and I have to sort of prop myself up in an awkward pose just to be able to sit in it. But I don't have anything else to sit on. It's and that's the thing of it is I could spend the next 100 years ordering seats, ordering chairs, having them shipped here, assembling them, and finding out that they're put together wrong or some crap. This chair looks like it was meant to be comfortable, and it is not. My butt hurts constantly. My tailbone, because of the way it distributes my weight. It's making me mad, and there's not a thing I can do about it. All these things. Oh, you can send it back, and get a refund. Yeah, that's great if you've got the resources to repackage the dang chair, and then get shipping truck come out, put it out, and load it up. If you've got some way to haul it out to the UPS office or the FedEx office and ship it back to them, and if you've got money to spare for the shipping costs, yeah, that's just Jim frickin' dandy. But the reality of most mail order products is that once you got it, you're more or less stuck with it. Unless if it's larger than a bread box, you're stuck with it because you're not going to be able to squeeze that thing into a standard size postal mailing envelope anyway. So I really need a new desk. This desk is a wobbly mess. It's a corner-shaped desk, so it's stuck in a corner. But it's gotten old, and it's made of plywood and fiber wood, and it's just old, and it's worn out, and the bolts and everything don't hold it together right anymore. It wobbles seriously. That's why I pushed it all the way into the corner so that the walls would prop it up. I have a list as long as uh, I have a list as long as my last novella of things that I absolutely positively have to fix, and absolutely positively have to clean, and absolutely positively have to have hauled away and thrown away and replaced and revamped. No, that's you know just one tiny little thing. I don't have transportation to haul stuff away. I don't have healthy. I don't have the tools or the money to repair things in this place, and I don't have the physical condition to be climbing around trying to repair things anyway. So here I sit in my broken chair with my aching butt. And it's not anything I can adjust or fix. Believe me, I checked the chair to make sure was it bolted together correctly? Were the parts did I put the parts together right? Follow the instructions. It's exactly the way it's supposed to be, and it's wrong. Misery. Ugh. Back hurts all the time to the point I barely notice it anymore. One of these days, my back's going to stop hurting, and I'm going to die of a heart attack from shock. Okay, we got 4 people in here. Mr. Cartoon Critic, MDJBC, MDBJC, and Lost One / Trivia Guy. Okay, it is 11:30 at night here, and we've been on here for about 2.5 hours, listening to me whine, proselytize, and basically be a pain in the butt. Ow. Ow, 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 ow. But I'm going to go ahead and call it a night. And thank y'all. Please spread the word. Tell everybody about my webcomics on www.rhjunior.com. My fan fictions on Archive of Our Own. I got banned from Archive of Our Own. Actually, I've been suspended. You see, apparently somebody got a hair up their butt, because I've got at the bottom of my page, at the bottom of some of my pages, it says, check out my Patreon and my homepage for more of my art and other stuff. And that constitutes as peddling for money, and like, hello. But it said, okay, I'll correct that. No, you're banned until February. Yeah, so I can't change it, I can't fix it, and but it's still up. I've got my stories at Archive of Our Own, at Sudden Velocity, and at Space Battles. Google them. .com. And just look for RHJunior. You'll find me. I have a coffee website. If you'd like to, just drop a tip in the hat, just go to Ko-Fi. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it correctly. I think it's supposed to be pronounced like coffee, but everybody would spell it wrong there if I pronounced it correctly. Okay, Ko-Fi, ko-fi.com/RHJunior. If you'd like to throw a tip in that, just a couple of bucks. It's stuck, the setting is stuck on $3. If you'd like to, throw, if you'd like to throw $3 in my general direction, I would say yay. I also have a Patreon, www.patreon.com/RHJunior. So, work that body, rock that body. Just tell everybody, just spread the word, and tell everybody that there's I update very slowly right now, but there is a humongozoid archive of strips. So I've got about 7 or 8 different strips in there, web strips, 2 or 3 of them that are the main ones, and the huge archive of each. Not as huge as some other people, but Nip and Tuck has passed 1,000 strips in its archive fairly recently, and I believe Tales of the Questor has too. And has also, I'm not saying it doesn't have 2 pages, but there's a lot of stuff to read. And I've got several fan fictions, like I said. If that's more your cup of tea,
everything from My Hero Academia to My Little Pony, and Stranger Things as well. So feel free to try them out. Check them out. Boom chakalaka laka boom chakalaka laka boom chakalaka laka boom. Okay, I've had it suggested that that I might try reading stories again on Spleen Squeezins. I think I shall. I think I shall think that over. I'll have to look around, see if there are any particular stories that would be good to read. I don't know if I should. Maybe I should read my own stuff. Maybe I should read somebody else's. You tell me. Pass a vote around. I'll decide. Okay. Tomorrow, we'll do a broadcast tomorrow. It'll be Friday. It'll be Friday. It'll be so cool. It'll be awesome. I'll find something to read, and we'll have story time, and I'll do some drawing, and I'll try and talk about something other than my religious anxieties and my social depression. Wee fun, and and we'll go from there. But for now, I'm going to call it a night because I am tired, I'm aching, and my tailbone hurts. So, you all take care of yourselves, alright? Thank you for watching. Thank you for your pledges. Thank you for your donations. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. What can I say but you're welcome? Hey. Okay. I'll catch you tomorrow. I might even do it tomorrow morning. I don't know. I'm capricious like that. Y'all take care. Have a good night. God bless.